Hey, everyone. If you're listening to today's episode, you're going to notice that this is a first for us. This is completely different than any pod that we've done in the past. Normally, I am interviewing wise and very accomplished finance and investing leaders and executives. In the past, I've interviewed a couple of our students, a couple of our alumni, a couple of our staff members. And today, I'm going to share some of my own observation and thoughts. So this will be me just sharing my own thoughts openly. My team asked me to come on and to do this. I've had a lot on my mind lately, and they thought that our community might find it valuable or useful for me to share more broadly some of what's been on my mind. My intention is that this will be equally useful, if you find it useful at all, for the very senior executives and investors who listen, the early and mid-career professionals who listen, and our students who are listening. I've been talking to a lot of people. In a week, I speak with dozens of people who have or manage millions or billions of dollars, sometimes trillions, literally. I speak to mid-career and early career finance and investing professionals. I speak to college students every week who book 15 minutes with me for mentorship and coaching. I feel really, really privileged to get to hear the deeper matters on people's hearts and minds. People talk to me about their struggles, their challenges, their fears, and of course, their accomplishments, their wins, their goals too. But oftentimes, I'm having conversations with people about their purpose, their values, their principles. We're fundamentally talking about leadership and making an impact. And I've been thinking so much about leadership lately, how badly we need good leadership, wise leaders, virtuous leaders, leaders we can trust. When you look at the world around us, there's wars everywhere. There's an enormous amount of international and geopolitical tension. If we just look at the US right now, there's so much polarization. There's economic uncertainty. April and May, for all the investors listening, were tough months to operate in. Even among our students, the younger members of our community, senior executives alike, there's just heightened anxiety and fear among people, uncertain about the future of our country, the future of our political system, the future of our economic system. When you look at the financial system, we have an economy that's falling far short of the mandate that Adam Smith and a lot of our wisest predecessors gave us for it, maximizing the shared prosperity for all citizens in our nation. We seriously need to rethink our economic system, leveraging the best of capitalism and continuing to evolve it even further so that we can drive flourishing for everybody in our society. There's a lot of extractive behavior out there, just arbitraging and siphoning value out of the economic system and consolidating it among fewer hands. I would argue we've become too individualistic in the US, that we need balance. We need to restore a sense of collective responsibility to each other and to our communities. When you look back over the last 250 years, our founding fathers, the architects of our modern capitalist system, have all had a overriding set of goals. Let's create this free nation, this capitalist democratic republic where the best ideas, those who work the hardest, win and are rewarded for their efforts, for their contributions, for adding value to the lives of others, for building products and services that meet other people's needs, that other people find valuable. When you look at our political system, debate and disagreement has always been structurally inherent in our democratic republic, but it's just been so much more tenuous lately. When you look back at the last administration, the last 4 years, like the left will say, went too far on a lot of things and are kind of walking some of those things back. We got thrusted really deeply into identity politics. If you look at the new administration, we're, again, too extreme on some things. And finding this sense of unity, of equilibrium, it's been really, really challenging. And literally everyone I talk to expresses some version of these sentiments. And I feel really fortunate that in any given week, whether I'm talking to our students, our staff, donors and investors, my friends, I've got a pretty balanced community across the spectrum, ideologically, politically, socially, people from different backgrounds with a lot of different belief systems. I'm from a small farm town in Minnesota where all of my family remains, and I live in the Bay Area, San Francisco, California. I just get to see all walks of life and all different viewpoints. And what's common among all of us right now is that we want to be getting along. We want peace and prosperity. We want better leaders and better institutions that we can trust. And a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, you listening right now, you are either in a position right now to meaningfully influence institutions as a leader. And I routinely get texts and emails after these episodes get released from C-suite executives, from GPs, LPs, members of investment committees and management and executive committees, people that run large financial institutions, saying how much they enjoyed our conversation with the latest guest. All of you listening who are already in positions of influence, I really hope that you'll think about how to wield that influence for the greater good, to make the most positive impact that you can, while we protect and preserve the best of what our country is founded upon. For younger listeners, our students, young professionals, you currently do have opportunities to have influence on your friends, on your families, on people younger than you, on your mentees. You can influence the culture around you in a variety of ways. If you're listening to this podcast, it would be fair to assume you're preparing yourself to be one of the future leaders who we frequently have on this podcast, who are going to have a lot of influence, wield decision-making influence over a lot of capital, and are preparing yourself to do the right thing when you have that much power and influence. I share all this to say that I've been thinking a lot about how difficult and challenging things around us feel. Everyone I talk to just has this heightened kind of level of anxiety and uncertainty. I feel it too. And for some of you listening, we've probably spoken in the last 2 to 4 months, and I've expressed that I'm feeling it too. I'm not immune to it. And I've been thinking a lot about what we need. Like, what do we do about it? We can only control our own actions and our own thoughts and our own words. We can't control anything outside of ourselves. All we can control is what we think, say, and do. And I've been thinking a lot for myself, what do I do? And so my team wanted me to share some of that. And this is where I hope that if you haven't already gotten incredibly bored, that you find some of this useful. At Scholars of Finance, in this institution that we've been building together, this movement that a lot of us are building together, if you're listening, we have 4 core values: integrity, humility, compassion, and excellence, and 12 leadership principles, 3 principles per value, illuminating those values in action. And I think our principles apply. We've spent years and thousands of hours of research, study, and discussion, people who are much wiser and more experienced than me, discerning what is the bare minimum set of behaviors that future and current leaders in finance and investing roles need to be the stewards of capital that the world needs us to be. And there's a few of those principles that feel especially salient right now. And we've been talking about them as a community in our recent podcast episodes. We had Howard Marks on and talked about intellectual humility, which is one that I want to talk about today. During our leadership symposia across the country, where we had people come together to talk about leadership, we talked about courage and integrity and staying true to our values in times of uncertainty and change. There's been a lot of conversations with friends and supporters of ours about the importance of compassion, serving a greater purpose, and trying to help those in need. There's a lot of people that have a lot of pretty serious needs out there right now. Billions of people globally, many millions of people here in the US that have real needs that we need to meet. What are those things that we need? Starting with integrity first. When you look at the degradation of trust in institutions, in each other, in our society, in our country, in our economic system, what does trust begin with? Trust begins with honesty and vulnerability. When you look at the research on it, we all need to be honest. One of our principles is develop trust with candor. And it's incredibly important that I believe that all of us are being candid, sharing our thoughts both privately and publicly, speaking up and speaking out right now. One of our other principles of integrity is to do the right thing, even if people around us aren't. If we disagree with something that other people are doing, other leaders are doing, we can still stay true to our values. And frankly, even if we don't have strong disagreements with people around us, we should be thinking deeply and thinking critically about the behaviors and actions we see around us and about our own behaviors and actions, and really thinking critically about whether or not we are acting in a way that is making lives of the people around us better. And if we're staying in alignment with our values, are we being honest? Are we being courageous in being honest? Are we being candid with people around us? We might look at the news, we might see TikTok videos, posts on X, where we see people behaving in ways that completely go against our values. And that doesn't mean that we should be any less bold or courageous or direct about our thoughts and feelings and what we're thinking. If anything, the more that we see negative behavior around us, the more that we need to stand up and really advocate for the right behaviors to be a countervailing force against some of those bad behaviors around us. Shifting to humility, I've been thinking about this one a lot, in part because, like for any leader, I'll speak for myself, like maintaining humility, really seeing ourselves in proper perspective, the good, the bad, our strengths, our weaknesses, accurate self-appraisal, as we say here at SOF. That's difficult, and it's a lifelong journey. One of our principles is to guard against greed and hubris, one of our principles of humility. And I think right now that principle is so important. If you're listening to this right now, what I'm about to say almost certainly does not apply to you, but I've have a lot of conversations in any given week or month at wherever I'm at. If I'm at the Milken conference, if I'm at a Forbes event, like wherever I am, where there's just a lot of posturing. There's a lot of big egos. I personally find it exhausting to be around. I have to because of the nature of a lot of people in our industry. And all of you listening probably have some people in your life or work, and you know what I'm talking about. But one of the dangers is that if we think we're immune to that, and if we don't really deeply critically assess and question ourselves, are we operating from ego, from just selfishness, from self-interest, just thinking about ourselves, or are we operating from serving a greater purpose, from trying to help other people, from a selfless posture? If we're not constantly remaining vigilant, we are forever at risk of slippery slope of greed and of hubris. And it's really easy in our line of work. When we're managing money, I manage our family, our household finances, our personal investments, both our public investments, our private investments. I talk to people all day, dozens of people a week who are managing millions or billions of dollars of investment capital, variety of assets. And we're constantly just around like wealth and exorbitance. And it's really critical that we recognize, what do we actually need? How much do we actually need? We should try to keep our desires in check. It's interesting. I remember talking to Howard Marks. He shared something really insightful. He said, when you look at Buddhist teaching, and he learned this in college, in a college class from a professor of his, he said, the Buddhists teach that there's every getting leads to another wanting. And so the thing to solve is the wanting. If we think that getting more, buying more, spending more, nicer things is going to finally bring us peace or bring us to the point where we're done, we're just wrong. An anecdote aside, the research on that today is very clear. We're on the hedonic treadmill. And our culture is on the hedonic treadmill. If anyone is right now listening and saying, being like, what are you trying to say? I can't want to go on a nice vacation or, buy my family nice things. It's not what I'm saying. I feel blessed to live a very privileged life. My wife and I, she's a physician. I'm a CEO of a nonprofit, of course, right now. And I have my other things that I do and our investments, but we're super lucky. We live in a beautiful apartment. We live in the Bay Area. We feel really fortunate and don't take it for granted. We were just in Cabo celebrating some really positive health news for my wife for a relaxing weekend. We enjoy ourselves too. So I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to shame anybody or guilt trip anybody. I'm not suggesting any of us live a life of destitution. I'm just suggesting we critically assess what we want and are striving for and really ask ourselves, when is enough enough? This, I think, segues into another one of our principles of humility that we teach that I think is really important, which is to understand ourselves deeply. I just finished reading Jonathan Haidt's latest book, The Anxious Generation, and got to meet him and speak with him about it at the Milken conference, which was super cool and inspiring. I was just struck reading it, thinking about how distracted our society is. Sam Harris talks about this a lot in his podcast, in his work. A lot of the psychologists today and the podcasters today, Huberman, others, all talk about how distracted we are. And I've just been really struck lately by how little time I have been making for really thinking deeply and critically and for self-reflection. And I'm hearing the same thing from people around me. We're all just so busy and frenetically busy We barely have time to take care of ourselves or keep up with our to-do lists. There's so many emails. There's so many meetings. There's kids' soccer games and football games and baseball games and vacations. There's dinners and happy hours and lunches. There's just so much that we're packing our calendars with that we're not creating that solitude, that space that humans fundamentally need to think deeply and to really critically understand ourselves, and therefore be able to manage ourselves, to be able to manage our energy, our sense of purpose, our behaviors, our emotions, our relationships effectively, all these things. I'm struck by how much I've been struggling to do that. And the more that I've personally started carving out that time to reflect and think deeply, what's been striking me, and this segues to compassion, another one of our values, one of our principles is serve a greater purpose. I've been talking about guarding against greed, guarding against hubris, the importance of humility, understanding ourselves. And time again, when I really take a step back and reflect on that, what emerges is remembering both the ancient wisdom. If you have any religious beliefs, if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, a Buddhist, if you're Jewish, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, even if you're an atheist, if you're atheistic or agnostic and don't have any kind of religious beliefs, when you look at all the ancient sources of wisdom and the modern science from the top researchers in the world, the Harvard Happiness Study, a lot of research by Adam Grant and Angela Duckworth, right, out of UPenn, like you look at the latest science, everything coalesces on the same thing. Our thousands of years of intuition and the modern empirical evidence all point to the importance of us trying to serve other people and help other people and make other people's lives better. At SOF, we teach, the 3 ways to guard against greed and hubris. There's a number of them, but 3 key ways are contentment, gratitude, and generosity. Contentment, I know when I have enough. Gratitude, I actually feel joy in what I have and don't take it for granted or feel entitled to it. And then generosity, we actually give what we have away, our time, our resources, to sort of protect ourselves from the insidious grip of self-centeredness by adopting an others-centered posture and mindset and set of actions and habits and disciplines. And I think when you look at what's going on in the world, in our country, in our financial system, more than ever, we need to restore this sense collectively of wanting to serve a greater purpose, of wanting to help others, solve problems, help other people, to live for something greater than ourselves. We can't lose sight of our passions, of what we've worked for, the problems we want to contribute to solving, or the people that we want to help. I just think it's so important. As I'm talking about this, I'm feeling a bit hesitant again. I want to qualify all of this again by saying, I don't think I'm perfect. I don't want to come off as preachy. If you have any impression that I'm some altruistic, always serving a greater purpose person, I'm not. Just ask my wife, Maya, how frequently I can fail to be considerate and I can be self-centered. The answer is often. That's why I'm thinking about this and talking about this. When I look at the problems around us, politically, socially, economically, when I really think about what's the root solution, we're this big collection of hundreds of millions of people in the US, billions of people around the globe, and any sort of systemic change starts at the individual level. Every single one of us taking our steps and doing our part. And I've been really thinking a lot about how I can be operating from a selfless posture of serving a greater purpose more and more frequently. And as I've been thinking about compassion and everything I was just sharing, there's another principle within compassion that we subscribe to in our community that I think is really relevant, especially relevant. Build relationships with respect. In this world of polarization, of left versus right, of just heightened anxiety and seeming chaos all around us, our very social fabric is threatened by this polarization. The research on that is really clear. At least that's my understanding of the research, that very social fabric of the US is at risk right now. I frequently hear of relationships being severed by political disagreements. I routinely see people, the moment politics or economics come up, people who are kind, thoughtful, humble individuals, just boom, instantly it's an argument, tensions rise, people are getting angry, their amygdalas are totally hijacking their neocortices, and they're talking past each other. And again, I'm guilty of this all the time. Anyone knows me that I'm a really passionate guy and that there are some hot button issues for me that I struggle to talk about calmly. And I'm personally working on being able to talk about these issues more calmly without my amygdala hijacking me. One of the antidotes to that is curiosity. Curiosity was one of the core values of SOF before we went through another round of research and iteration on our values and principles. But remain intellectually curious is still one of our principles of humility. I think that's incredibly important. And the research suggests that is, and pretty clearly states now, that is required for building relationships with respect. Listening to each other, sincerely seeking to understand different perspectives and people we disagree with, it's absolutely fundamental for us. And again, I struggle with this often. Ask my wife again how often I struggle with that too. None of us are perfect. I'm far from perfect. I just think it's really critical that we start asking more questions and start listening more. In fact, for myself, every quarter in our company, we do 360 feedback, kind of a light round of 360 feedback with each other. And we develop personal growth plans every quarter. And right now, listening and asking more questions is one of my 3 highest priorities in my own personal growth plan, which all of my staff can see. We can all see each other's growth plan. So my whole team knows that right now I'm really focused on learning how to listen more, how to be more curious. I might read 20 books a year and listen to hundreds of podcasts and have hundreds of calls where I'm seeking wisdom and advice. And I'm curious in those venues, but I want to be curious in all the other venues, right? When I'm talking to people who are younger than me, different than me, have a different perspective than me, I want to be curious in those ways too. I keep coming back to who am I to be saying any of this? I don't think I have all the answers. I don't consider myself particularly wise, but I have spent the last 15 years voraciously seeking wisdom from mentors, from leaders of the past, reading hundreds of books. I've spent now over 10,000 hours, I think, seeking and learning how to be a better leader and a better person myself. And I'm just sharing my perspective for people to consider because my team thought it might be of value. There are a lot of things that I'm doing personally. I've already mentioned some of those, but more practically, if you're one of our students listening, or even if you're one of the senior executives listening and you've somehow found this insightful, for what it's worth, some of the things that I've been doing lately, first, I've been carving out more time to read, to write, and to think really critically and deeply, both about the world and what I can do right now to serve the people around me. Hence a lot of these thoughts that I'm sharing. Second, I've been seeking a lot more feedback from my team, from mentors, even from people I barely know. I just did a 3-day workshop at Stanford, their applied interpersonal dynamics course. It's like a famous course at the GSB known as Touchy-Feely. Once a quarter, about 40 people can just sign up from the public to do like a 20-hour intensive of it. And I just did it. And the weekend before recording, and got a lot of feedback from strangers about how I show up and about how I can be a more mindful and thoughtful presence. I've really been seeking feedback from people around me to protect humility and really kind of refresh and update my understanding of how I impact other people and how I'm showing up day to day. Third, I've been actively seeking opportunities to serve others. I've been helping a lot of people in my life process family issues, fears and anxieties and uncertainties about the world around them. I've been giving to the poor more frequently, spending more time serving the homeless here in the Bay Area, volunteering more. I've been inviting donors to think more critically about their legacy, which feels vulnerable to do because I'm talking to someone usually with years or decades of more experience and wisdom than me. But I'm really just, challenging them and pushing them a little bit more to think about how they can make more impact and help more people and do more good, whether with their family, their friends, their local communities, on the institutions they run and lead, or on the state, nation, and world that they invest and allocate assets for. So just thinking more and more about how do I kind of maximize my own impact. Fourth, I've really been curating my information consumption, trying to find better news sources that are less biased, less charged, less clickbait, really minimizing social media and ensuring that I'm getting a sort of healthy balance of speaking to people that share different perspectives and are on all points of the ideological spectrum, socioeconomic strata, you name it. I really want to talk to a broad, diverse range of people in any given week or month. So I'm just being really thoughtful about the information I take in, not being blind to what's going on around me. In fact, spending a lot of time leaning into learning about what's going on around me, but getting sources that give me a balanced, as close to objective as possible, kind of diverse range of views. And fifth, and the final thing I'll share, is that I've been trying to rest and really invest in self-care. I normally run really hard. And if you're listening and you know me, like, you already know this. I work really long hours to advance the mission of Scholars of Finance and my life mission. My life's purpose is to maximize human flourishing as a servant leader by trying to transform lives and systems through virtue, wisdom, and love. And if you just rolled your eyes at all hearing that, that honestly is my conception, my current understanding of my mission in life. I really want to do my part to create a better future and a better world where more people experience prosperity and joy and peace. I want to create a united world where everyone's needs can be met and we can all enjoy this brief time that we have on Earth. I'm learning to share that more and more, even at the risk of sounding grandiose, because I want to be courageous and really put out there just how important I think us trying to help each other is. And I just want to be authentic and be real with what I care about, what matters to me. Back to the rest piece, I've really been intentionally prioritizing and making more time for sleep, exercise, meditation, reflection, for rest. And I've been trying to role model that to make it okay for my team to do the same. I don't know if any of this has been useful. I hope that any of you listening to this will feel motivated to consider taking some steps to grow and lead more thoughtfully. Whether our senior executives thinking about your teams, your company culture, your families, your legacy, our mid-career professionals and investors thinking about your relationships, the deals you're working on, your local communities, our students thinking about your future career, your next job or internship, your friendships. I firmly believe that every single one of us can make a lot of impact with our lives. And the research clearly shows that we will be happier and more fulfilled if we do. If people find this useful, maybe we'll do more of these in the future. I've had a lot of questions from our students and our supporters recently about some of what I'm doing, some of my thoughts on the world. So part of this is just me trying to answer some of the questions I've been regularly getting. And so I hope this answers some of the questions that you might have had for me or for SOF. I sincerely hope that anyone who's chosen to listen to this, that you have found this helpful. You can feel free to reach out to me. You can on LinkedIn, on X, you can shoot me an email to share any thoughts or questions. I'd love to hear your feedback on anything I've said. If you vehemently disagree with something I've put forth, if any of this was helpful, I'm curious to hear how you see the world right now. And I'd love to hear what you're doing amidst these times to be a better leader yourself and what you think that we could do together to do our part to be better leaders in the months and years ahead. So I hope you found this useful. If you've got to this point, thanks for listening. Would love your feedback and love to hear how you're thinking about things. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Investing in Integrity by Scholars of Finance. I want to share a huge thank you to our advisors, directors, donors, team, and our members who make this all possible. If you like this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you have any feedback for us, you can send it to hello@scholarsoffinance.org or by visiting our website. Until next time, please join us on our mission to inspire character and integrity in the finance leaders of tomorrow.